The Minotaurs Chapter of the Loyalist Adeptus Astartes is an enigmatic and elusive entity, shrouded in obfuscation regarding its true provenance and genetic lineage. The contemporary iteration of the chapter, as it presently operates within the vast expanse of the Imperium, exhibits a marked divergence from earlier historical depictions, suggesting a deliberate disjunction between its past and present incarnations. Historical records concerning the Minotaur's activities, prior to approximately a millennium ago, have been subjected to stringent imperial suppression, enforced by decrees of such potency that even the Inquisition, with its unparalleled authority, finds itself impeded from accessing these concealed truths with ease. Renowned for an extremity of xenophobia that surpasses even the already formidable insularity typical of the Imperium Space Marines, the Minotaurs are further distinguished by a persistent unreliability in cooperative military engagements. Their notorious inability to harmonize with other Imperial forces often renders them unpredictable allies, challenging the efficacy of coordinated warfare within the broader Imperial war machine. Accounts of the ancient Minotaurs depict a legion of feral berserkers, whose method of waging war was characterized by untamed ferocity and an unwavering isolationism, avoiding any form of collaboration with external military entities. However, the modern iteration of the chapter presents a stark contrast. Whether the Minotaurs have somehow transcended the malevolent affliction that once defined them, or whether they are, in truth, an entirely new cadre of warriors bearing only the same name and insignia, remains a subject of ongoing speculation and uncertainty. It remains a profound and enduring mystery, inaccessible even to the most exalted tiers of governance, as all records pertaining to the origins of the Minotaurs and the current state of their gene seed tributes are irrevocably classified by the supreme authority of the Imperium. The chapter operates with unfaltering zeal in the Emperor's wars, its deployments seemingly dictated solely by the decrees of the Senatorum Imperialis. Rarely, if ever, does the chapter heed the summons of any other imperial power. Strikingly, many of their engagements bear the unique distinction of being directed against fellow Adeptus Astartes, often targeting renegades or autonomous contingents of otherwise loyal chapters that have proven unwilling or unable to enact self-discipline. The Minotaurs seem to approach these engagements with a fervor bordering on fervid zeal, as if deliberately seeking out adversaries of the highest caliber, their fellow Space Marines, to test the mettle of their own prowess. On the rare occasions where they are required to fight alongside other Adeptus Astartes, their actions betray an overt disdain so caustic that it frequently culminates in severe discord, manifesting in forms as grievous as personal duels or less conspicuous, but no less hostile clashes. This pattern of antipathy extends beyond mere battle brothers, for it is widely observed that the Minotaurs harbor an all-encompassing disdain for all other subjects of the Imperium. Their very presence emanates a malevolent intensity so palpable that even the most hardened and unflinching generals of the Emperor recoil in their presence, fearful of what such malign energies might portend. Moreover, one peculiarity sets this chapter apart. While outwardly adhering to the tenets of the Codex Astartes in matters of organization, the Minotaurs operate predominantly as a unified chapter, eschewing the more conventional dispersal of forces that typifies their peers. This singularity in their method of war-making hints at a deeper divergence from established norms, one shrouded in the same veil of enigma that enshrouds the entirety of their existence. The Minotaurs exhibit a pronounced aversion to dispersing their strength into smaller contingents, favoring instead the consolidation of their forces into a singular, monolithic entity. This strategic inclination renders the chapter less of a scalpel and more of a sledgehammer, an indomitable force, capable of obliterating any adversary that dares to obstruct its path. Such operational rigidity is compounded by what appears to be a draconian regimen of accelerated psychological conditioning and genetic augmentation imposed upon their neophytes, ensuring that the chapter's battlefield presence is invariably that of a unified whole, seldom fractured into smaller detachments. In combat, the Minotaurs are gripped by an unrelenting ferocity, verging on berserker rage, with an almost reckless willingness to suffer grievous casualties if it guarantees victory. The rate at which the chapter is able to replenish both its ranks and its war assets, given the staggering losses they endure, defies conventional understanding and remains one of the many riddles that surround their existence. Indeed, attempts to unravel the mechanisms behind this seemingly inexhaustible supply of recruits and material have led to the untimely deaths of more than one Imperial operative, their investigations cut short by forces unknown and unfathomable. A chapter of unrelenting ferocity, the Minotaurs are steeped in a notorious reputation throughout the Imperium of Man, their very name eliciting suspicion and hostility among their fellow Adeptus Astartes. The nature of their operations, combined with their peculiar autonomy, has not escaped the gaze of the Ordo Hereticus, some of whose members harbor unsettling theories of clandestine affiliations between the chapter and the elusive High Lords of Terra. Such conjectures are compounded by the sheer opacity that surrounds the Minotaur's origins. The High Lords of Terra are the ruling body of the Imperium of Man, responsible for the governance of the vast, galaxy-spanning empire in the name of the Emperor. They are drawn from the most powerful and influential institutions within the Imperium, and together they wield immense political, military, and religious authority. While the Emperor remains the supreme ruler, he has been in a state of eternal stasis for over 10,000 years, so the High Lords effectively govern in his stead. Although the fragmentary records of their activities over the past millennium have been pieced together, through painstaking analysis of scattered battle archives spanning the breadth of the Imperium, the chapter's history prior to this period is shrouded in an even deeper mystery. This obscurity is not due to mere loss or decay over time, but appears to be the result of a calculated suppression. Their past has been enshrined behind impenetrable layers of secrecy, concealed beneath binding decrees issued by the highest echelons of Terra's authority, decrees so absolute that even the far-reaching power of the Inquisition is incapable of breaching them. This deliberate obfuscation raises profound questions about the true nature of the Minotaurs and their possible entanglement with the Imperium's most august and enigmatic powers. It is a matter of historical record that a chapter of Adeptus Astartes bearing the name Minotaurs was conceived during the notorious 21st Founding, also referred to in hushed tones as the Cursed Founding. However, whether the Minotaurs who rose to prominence in the tumultuous campaigns of the early 41st millennium are indeed the same chapter remains a contentious point of debate among Imperial scholars. This enigma has fueled endless speculation, given the passage of millennia and the shrouded intricacies of Imperial records. The 21st Founding, commonly referred to as the Cursed Founding, earned its infamous moniker due to the widespread failures, mutations, and unpredictable traits that plagued many of the Space Marine chapters created during this period. Occurring sometime in the 36th millennium, this founding was driven by the Imperium's desire to create new and more powerful Space Marine forces, using experimental methods to address perceived flaws in existing chapters' gene seed and to enhance the combat effectiveness of the Adeptus Astartes. The Imperium's geneticists and the Adeptus Mechanicus, particularly the biologist divisions, sought to manipulate the genetic material of the original Space Marine legions to create stronger, more resilient warriors. This experimentation involved attempts to refine and improve gene seed, addressing inherent weaknesses such as mutations that had accumulated over time, particularly in the chapters that had deviated furthest from their original progenitors. The main individuals responsible for this genetic work on the Cursed Founding were genetors and other specialized scientists. Genetors are a highly specialized member of the Adeptus Mechanicus, belonging to the Magos biologist, who focuses on the study and manipulation of biological life forms. These technobiologists are tasked with the genetic engineering, cataloging, and experimentation on various species, including humans, xenos, and other organisms, often seeking to improve or control biological processes. Genetors are deeply involved in understanding the intricacies of genetics, anatomy, and mutation, blending the scientific with the arcane. Their work often borders on the heretical by Imperial standards, as they delve into biomanipulation, cloning, and the enhancement of life forms, sometimes creating abominable hybrids or uncovering forbidden knowledge in the process. Despite this, their contributions to the Imperium, whether through advancing human evolution, breeding efficient warriors, or experimenting with alien biology, are considered invaluable, albeit shrouded in secrecy and suspicion. The Minotaurs of the Cursed Founding swiftly garnered a fearsome reputation, their savagery in battle eclipsing that of many of their peers. Their relentless fury seemed almost preternatural, a martial ferocity that could scarcely be contained by the conventions of warfare. Yet, as the chapter's legacy unfolded, troubling patterns began to emerge. Their habitual disregard for external command structures, and their irregular compliance with gene seed ties to the Magos Inviglia of the Adeptus Mechanicus drew the scrutiny of many. When considered alongside the litany of genetic aberrations and malign mutations that plagued other chapters born of the 21st Founding, these irregularities stirred suspicions far darker than mere administrative delinquency. Whispers began to circulate, hinting that the Minotaurs might harbor far more sinister truths within their bloodlines, secrets entwined with the cursed legacy of their creation that the chapter has gone to great lengths to conceal from prying eyes. The scant remnants of archival data that have survived the passage of time designate the gene seed of this chapter. with the damning epithet of chimeric. This term, laden with profound heretical implications, suggests the unsettling possibility that the Minotaur's genetic essence was derived through unorthodox means. Whether this implies that their gene seed was illicitly obtained from a prescribed source, contaminated through the admixture with a genetically tainted lineage, or deliberately manipulated and corrupted during its gestation remains a matter of fierce speculation. The notion that such genetic heresy could have been sanctioned, or worse, deliberately orchestrated, casts a shadow over the chapter's origins, implying a defilement so profound that it borders on outright sacrilege. It is highly probable that the Minotaurs barely restrained battle rage and their palpable aversion to those who might otherwise have been regarded as their comrades stem from a specific and malevolent taint within their genetic lineage. This blood-borne malediction may well be the root of their isolationist tendencies and their violent disposition. Yet whether this affliction has fully subjugated their will, rendering them thralls to its fury, or if, through some grim discipline, they have managed to subdue its influence and harness it to their advantage, remains a matter cloaked in uncertainty. The question of whether they are the masters or the victims of this internal curse continues to vex scholars and warriors alike, leaving the true nature of their struggle obscured. From the latter half of the 38th millennium, the Minotaurs seem to have all but vanished from the historical annals of the Imperium, their once documented glories and martial accomplishments systematically erased or concealed through a concerted series of edicts and data purges. The causes of this obliteration remain shadowed, but what is certain is that their return to prominence, roughly a millennium ago, was met with no small measure of trepidation. When the chapter re-emerged, they demonstrated an alarming readiness to heed the summons of the High Lords of Terra with unwavering swiftness and obedience. Most notably, their willingness to engage in punitive operations against other space marines, particularly those declared renegade or accused of vague transgressions, without hesitation raised eyebrows throughout the Imperium. This unswerving loyalty to the High Lords, even when tasked with the destruction of former loyalists, earned the Minotaurs a dark and fearsome reputation. Their merciless conduct, particularly during their near annihilation of the Minotaurs Chapter at Euxine, has bred a deep-seated enmity among many fellow Astartes. The Ultramarines and their numerous successor chapters in particular harbor a bitter animosity toward the Minotaurs, refusing to engage alongside them after witnessing their ruthless actions against their own kind. In the turbulent aftermath of the Great Rift's violent inception, the Minotaurs' roving fortress monastery found itself besieged by the relentless forces of the 7th Plague Company, a vile contingent of the Death Guard Traitor Legion. Though the Minotaurs succeeded in repelling the pestilential servants of the Plague God, their triumph quickly soured into despair. Upon inspecting their sacred gene seed vaults, they were horrified to discover that Nurgle's insidious corruption had defiled the very essence of their future warriors. Faced with this existential threat amidst the chaos spreading across the galaxy, the chapter had no choice but to undertake a grueling and desperate Imperial crusade. Their singular aim became to reach Terra, the throne world itself, where they hoped to gain access to the purified gene seed stocks safeguarded by the Adeptus Mechanicus. Without this swift intervention, the Minotaurs faced the grim possibility of slow extinction as their tainted lineage threatened to consume them from within. While the Minotaurs outwardly adhere to the broad organizational framework and squad configurations dictated by the Codex Astartes, their tactical doctrines diverge markedly from the standard approaches of other chapters. On the field of battle, the Minotaurs issue the typical dispersal of forces in favor of a far more concentrated method of warfare. They demonstrate a pronounced preference for deploying the entirety of their strength, or where this is impractical, as few subdivisions of their forces as possible within a given theater of war, thereby maximizing the brute force of their assault. This strategic consolidation of power affords the Minotaurs a significant advantage, particularly in the realms of siege warfare and engagements with colossal adversaries. The sheer mass of their concentrated numbers enables them to overpower even the most formidable opponents through relentless attrition. If necessary, overwhelming defenses and monstrous foes alike by the sheer ferocity and volume of their assaults. This doctrine, rooted in the belief that overwhelming force is the key to decisive victory, has solidified their reputation as masters of both protracted sieges and battles against the most titanic of enemies. In stark contrast to the majority of Space Marine chapters, the Minotaur's strategic doctrine frequently relies on the calculated use of attritional warfare, particularly within tightly constrained theaters of conflict. Their commanders exhibit a striking indifference to the fates of their individual warriors, prioritizing victory above all else, even at the expense of substantial casualties. This cold pragmatism distinguishes the Minotaurs from their peers, as they are far more willing to expend the lives of their battle brothers to secure their objectives, viewing such sacrifices as a necessary component of their martial philosophy. Two critical factors enable the Minotaurs to sustain this brutal form of warfare: a seemingly inexhaustible supply of advanced heavy weaponry and war machines, which bolsters their capacity for prolonged engagements, and a remarkably rapid replenishment of neophytes to replace those lost in combat. This steady influx of fresh recruits mitigates the losses incurred through their high-risk tactics, allowing the chapter to maintain operational effectiveness despite the devastating attrition they routinely suffer. These advantages, combined with their unyielding resolve, make the Minotaurs particularly adept at enduring and overcoming extended campaigns that would cripple other chapters. The precise origins of the Minotaurs' considerable war material remain an enigma, yet their operations are characterized by the conspicuous use of vast, seemingly inexhaustible reserves of tanks and heavy armored vehicles. This logistical abundance allows the chapter's battle companies to consistently deploy formidable contingents of vindicators and predators, integrating these assets as pivotal components of their tactical repertoire. In addition to their vehicular strength, Minotaur's battle brothers are equipped with advanced war gear, evidenced by their frequent deployment in the highly sophisticated Mark 8 errant pattern power armor. This cutting-edge armor is prevalent across their ranks, and their first company is often fielded in combat clad in the venerable and immensely powerful Terminator armor. Furthermore, they are known to make extensive use of the Mark III iron pattern battle plate, specifically modified for void warfare. The provenance of this armor remains obscure, but its strategic importance is undeniable. Beyond their formidable armor, the Minotaur's arsenal includes a vast array of high-quality weaponry, spanning power weapons of exquisite craftsmanship to rare and advanced plasma weapons produced in the Ryza pattern. This diverse and elite armament underscores the chapter's access to equipment and technology, far beyond what is available to most other Adeptus Astartes, further deepening the mystery of their supply chains and reinforcing their reputation as a force of unparalleled resilience and power. On the battlefield, additional evidence of the exceptional breadth and sophistication of the Minotaur's armory can be inferred from their consistent deployment of the majority of their first company veterans equipped as Terminators in active combat. This is further underscored by their access to rare and prized variants of tactical dreadnought armor, including the elusive Tartaros and Arcanac patterns, both of which are seldom seen outside the elite ranks of the most revered chapters. Moreover, the chapter's arsenal extends beyond mere infantry gear, encompassing a remarkable collection of relic war machines typically reserved for the most venerated forces of the first founding. Among these are formidable squadrons of Storm Eagle gunships and the ancient Spartan assault tanks, vehicles of immense destructive capacity and historical significance. The Minotaur's ability to field such rare and prestigious war assets not only highlights their strategic prowess, but also raises questions about the obscure and likely privileged sources from which they draw such exceptional material. This privileged access reinforces their status as a chapter with resources and capabilities rivaling even the oldest and most honored of the Imperium's forces. One of the more peculiar and enigmatic traits of the Minotaurs chapter lies in their capacity to replenish their ranks with startling rapidity, a phenomenon that starkly contrasts with the practices of most other Space Marine chapters. The interval between a recruit's induction as a neophyte, their advancement to the role of Scout Marine, and ultimately their full initiation as a battle brother is markedly accelerated, compressed into a fraction of the time typically required elsewhere. This expedited progression is largely attributed to the chapter's extensive use of advanced and highly invasive psychoindoctrination protocols coupled with complex neurocerebral surgeries. These methods, employed from the earliest stages of a recruit's induction and continuously reinforced through ongoing treatments, administered by the chapter's apothecaries even during active deployment, serve to hasten the development of mental conditioning and combat readiness. However, these techniques, while not outright forbidden by Imperial decree, tread a fine line between sanctioned practice and perilous innovation. The inherent risks, both physical and psychological, associated with such radical procedures far exceed those typically undertaken by other chapters. Most chapters of the Adeptus Astartes place considerable emphasis on a slower, more deliberate form of training, whereby the neophyte's battlefield experience and gradual maturation are viewed as essential components in the forging of a true warrior's spirit. In contrast, the Minotaur's reliance on these aggressive, artificial methods, designed to rapidly replace their frequently high casualties, often inflicted by their own relentless combat doctrine, distinguishes them as a chapter willing to embrace dangers that others would deem far too risky. all in the name of maintaining their formidable strength. Although the Minotaurs ostensibly conform to the structural and organizational principles outlined in the Codex Astartes, they diverge sharply in their operational doctrine by deploying almost exclusively as an entire chapter. Whereas most Space Marine chapters customarily distribute their forces across multiple war fronts and detach smaller task groups, for auxiliary missions, the Minotaurs exhibit a marked reluctance to fragment their strength. They seldom commit to side operations or deploy isolated contingents, opting instead to concentrate their full might in a singular theater of war. This tactical rigidity renders the chapter a blunt, yet devastatingly effective weapon, capable of obliterating any adversary that dares confront them. As a result, the Minotaurs are almost always encountered as a unified and overwhelming force. This operational singularity, however, raises uncertainties regarding the extent to which individual Minotaurs participate in more nuanced duties, such as standing the vigil of the Long Watch. The chapter's inclination toward cohesive action has led to a conspicuous absence of Minotaurs within the Death Watch, particularly at Watch Fortress Arioch in the Jericho Reach, leaving scholars to speculate whether their disposition and commitment to their own strategies preclude significant representation in this elite force. This fiercely independent and nearly uncontrollable warband would frequently appear in conflict zones with little warning or strategic preparation, often foregoing even the most basic reconnaissance efforts. Upon their arrival, they would launch themselves into battle with reckless abandon, disregarding casualties and the resources expended in the pursuit of their immediate objectives. Once their violent fervor had been exhausted, the Minotaurs would just as abruptly disengage and withdraw from the field, leaving behind as much confusion as devastation. Such erratic behavior rendered the chapter an unreliable asset in the eyes of their Imperial allies, who found them far too unpredictable to be counted on in any coordinated effort. However, the Minotaurs that resurfaced in the early years of the 41st millennium displayed a marked evolution in their approach to warfare. Their once chaotic and frenzied methodology gave way to a more measured and tactically sophisticated manner of prosecuting campaigns, a transformation that set them apart from their former iteration. This shift indicated not only a change in their strategic execution but also a more calculated adherence to the overarching demands of the Imperium's war efforts. The chapter's contemporary tactical doctrine demonstrates a significant departure from its previously unrestrained methods, now exhibiting a refined and deliberate approach to warfare. Rather than recklessly committing their full strength from the outset, the Minotaurs have adopted a more sophisticated strategy wherein they first deploy a vanguard to engage and hold the enemy in a fierce, unyielding struggle. Simultaneously, their swift assault units maneuver with precision, encircling the adversary to sever any avenues of retreat. Once the enemy is effectively immobilized, the chapter unleashes the full might of its firepower and heavy armor in a crushing display of overwhelming force, ensuring complete and merciless annihilation. Despite retaining a substantial degree of operational autonomy, the Minotaurs now exhibit a marked alignment with the broader structure of the Imperium's military apparatus. No longer the erratic and unpredictable force of their ancient past, the chapter appears more inclined to function within the strategic and command frameworks dictated by Imperial High Command, adhering to the Imperium's martial directives with a level of cooperation that belies the chaotic and insubordinate tendencies once attributed to their distant legacy. The Minotaurs exhibit a profound disregard for all but two entities, the Emperor of Mankind and the High Lords of Terra, to whom they demonstrate a fanatical and unwavering allegiance. Their loyalty is absolute, manifesting in actions that often defy conventional expectations of decorum or hierarchy within the Imperium. This extreme devotion was exemplified during their participation in the Hexarchy Rebellion on Terra, amidst the tumultuous era Indomitus. During this conflict, they aligned themselves with a faction of both incumbent and ousted High Lords who, in reactionary defiance, sought to reverse the sweeping reforms introduced by the resurgent Guilliman. In their interactions with other Imperial forces, the Minotaurs show little regard for the niceties of protocol or respectful engagement. They approach individual Imperial commanders and even fellow Space Marine chapters with an unrelenting brusqueness, rarely displaying any semblance of deference. Yet there is a distinct, almost palpable satisfaction they derive from measuring their prowess against formidable adversaries, reveling in the challenge of combat rather than the customs of diplomacy or cooperation. Several Imperial commanders, who have had the dubious experience of serving alongside the Minotaurs since their resurgence, have made veiled remarks suggesting that this chapter teeters precariously on the brink of madness or even heresy. They speak of the Minotaurs' extraordinary and often excessive defensive measures, noting that their security protocols, even when engaging with supposed allies, are marked by an obsessive zeal verging on paranoia. However, considering the myriad threats that besiege the Imperium from within and beyond its borders, such extreme vigilance, though unsettling, may not be entirely unwarranted. These commanders imply that the chapter's insular and distrustful nature reflects a deeper, more troubling mindset, raising questions about whether their rigid practices are a necessary safeguard or a symptom of something far more insidious. Imperial commanders have publicly remarked upon the unsettling presence of the Minotaur Space Marines, describing them as dark and malign warriors, a stark contrast to the image of honor and nobility traditionally associated with the Adeptus Astartes. Each member of the chapter emanates an aura of barely contained animosity and malevolence, instilling fear and unease in all but the most resolute individuals who cross their path. The Battle Brothers of the Minotaurs adorn their power armor with a complex array of syncretic symbols and iconography, reflective of their rank and distinguished combat history. Many of these markings remain indecipherable to those outside the chapter, their meanings deliberately obscured. However, it is widely believed that the numerical and chromatic variations of the Lambda Helican glyphs, which feature prominently in Minotaur's heraldry, correspond to personal victories achieved in single combat against formidable adversaries. These glyphs are thought to denote the increasing significance of these encounters, suggesting a meticulous record of martial prowess measured by the caliber of slain foes. In its earliest iteration, the Minotaurs Chapter adorned their armor in a vibrant yellow, accented with red, often serving as hazard or warning markings. However, in the current era, the chapter has adopted a more somber palette, with their power armor now clad in a distinct bronze hue. The right shoulder pauldron of each battle brother prominently features the chapter's heraldic symbol, while the left pauldron is reserved for displaying the emblem corresponding to the Marine's tactical role, whether that be battle line, close support, fire support, veteran, or command. Unlike many other chapters, the Minotaurs eschew the traditional practice of marking their armor with squad numbers or company designations, furthering their distinct identity. Members of the prestigious First Company, comprising the chapter's most seasoned veterans, bear a unique variant of the chapter's iconography, a bronze bull's head set against a dark red field, symbolizing their elevated status within the chapter's ranks. The Minotaurs Chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, while renowned for its ferocity and sheer destructive capability, is equally noted for the impressive scope and sophistication of its armory. This distinction is perhaps most clearly demonstrated by the extensive variety and quantity of dreadnought chassis they maintain in active deployment. Unlike many other chapters, whose arsenals are limited to the more standard dreadnought patterns typical of the late 41st millennium, the Minotaurs boast an array of rare and almost forgotten designs, many of which are regarded as relics in the armories of their peers. A particularly notable example of this is their use of the Contemptor pattern dreadnought. Hailing from the bygone era of the Great Crusade in the 30th millennium, the Contemptor, along with its various sub-patterns, represents the pinnacle of dreadnought engineering. These war machines incorporate advanced technologies once shared with the now extinct Legio Cybernetica's battle automata, including a highly efficient adamantic reactor and energy shielding systems whose methods of production have been lost to time. The fact that the Minotaurs are able to field as many as 10 of these ancient and formidable engines of war during observed engagements, such as the Orphean War against the Necrons, is a staggering anomaly in the present era of the Imperium. Within the chapter, these venerable machines are referred to by the moniker Hecaton, a term derived from ancient Terran dialects believed to translate as giant, legion, or enslaved monster. However, unlike the veneration typically afforded to dreadnoughts by their space marine brethren, the Minotaurs display a conspicuous lack of reverence toward the Hecaton. Instead, they are treated with an eerie detachment, a cold indifference that starkly contrasts with the awe and respect these walking relics command in other chapters. The chapter relics include the Black Spear, a lethal relic weapon of mysterious origin, bears similarities to the exalted armaments wielded by the Adeptus Custodes, yet its true provenance remains shrouded in secrecy. This formidable power weapon exhibits unparalleled destructive capability, its blade engineered to breach even the impregnable armor of Terminator battle plate. In addition to its melee prowess, the Black Spear integrates a singular high-powered laser mechanism, capable of discharging a single shot of immense intensity, rendering it suitable for anti-tank applications when necessary. This ancient weapon is currently in the possession of Chapter Master Asterion Moloch, and its significance extends beyond its martial utility. The Black Spear serves as the ceremonial symbol of authority for the Master of the Minotaurs, a tradition carried through the chapter's history. Each successive chapter master has borne this spear as both a tool of war and a symbol of their dominion, its deadly potential reflecting the ruthless nature of the Minotaurs themselves. Beyond their notorious brutality and ruthless efficiency, a series of notable incidents have further cemented the Minotaurs' fearsome reputation among their peers. These events have not only showcased their unyielding loyalty to the Imperium, but have also revealed the extreme lengths to which the chapter is willing to go in pursuit of their objectives, reinforcing their status as one of the most formidable and controversial forces within the Adeptus Astartes. The Hexarchy Rebellion, an insurrection of immense significance, occurred at an unknown point in M42 and was orchestrated by a faction of both current and former High Lords of Terra. This group, known as the Hexarchy, consisted of figures who had either been removed from power by Guilliman following his resurrection, or who staunchly opposed the sweeping reforms he introduced to the Imperium. The rebellion was spearheaded by Erthu Hemotalion, the ousted master of the Administratum, and the deposed ecclesiarch Baldosolith, both of whom sought to restore the Imperium's rigid and stagnant governance prior to Guilliman's reforms. Their ranks also included Aveliza Drachmer, the Grand Provost Marshal of the Adeptus Arbites, Lord Commander Militant Mar Avenue Asherial, Lord High Admiral Morel de Perith, and the Grand Master of Assassins, Fadix, all utilizing the vast power and resources at their disposal as leaders of the Imperium's highest institutions. Seizing the opportunity while Guilliman was away commanding the Indomitus Crusade, the Hexarchy aimed to reassert control over Terra and reinstate the so-called Imperium Eterna, a vision of the Imperium untouched by the upheavals of the era Indomitus. To enact their plan, they ordered the Minotaurs Space Marine Chapter, renowned for their unswerving and often brutal loyalty to the Emperor and the High Lords, to reinforce their hold on Terra, under the pretense that enemies within threatened the heart of the Imperium. Their plan, however, unraveled when it was revealed that Fadix, the Grand Master of Assassins, had been acting as an agent of Guilliman all along, working in secret to undermine the Hexarchy from within. At the precise moment, Fadix activated his loyal Imperial assassins, who swiftly eliminated the conspirators. In a masterstroke of political maneuvering, Guilliman's trap ensured that the rebellion failed before it could gain traction. The Minotaurs, none the wiser, were used as unwitting pawns in this grand deception, and the Hexarchy's vision of restoring the Imperium's old order was extinguished, solidifying Guilliman's grip on Terra and his reforms. The Euxine incident, occurring between 400-425-41 during the Macarian heresy, stands as one of the most infamous and controversial actions undertaken by the Minotaurs Chapter. Tasked with quelling a violent and protracted conflict between two Imperial Space Marine chapters, the Doom Warriors and the Inceptors, both of whom had refused repeated orders to cease hostilities and assist in the pacification of the Macarian Crusade's conquered worlds, the Minotaurs were dispatched to intervene. Exhibiting their characteristic indifference to the underlying causes or justifications of the dispute, the Minotaurs launched an uncompromising and overwhelming assault against both chapters. The Doom Warriors, unable to withstand the sheer ferocity of the attack, retreated from the system in a disordered and hasty withdrawal, narrowly escaping annihilation. Meanwhile, the Inceptors were all but decimated, with fewer than 100 surviving battle brothers forced to surrender in humiliation to the Minotaurs' unrelenting onslaught. This ruthless intervention not only shattered the Inceptors but also created a lasting enmity between the Minotaurs and the Ultramarines, along with their successor chapters. Viewing the Minotaurs' actions as a grievous affront to the honor of the Astartes, the Ultramarines and their kin have since harbored a deep-seated desire for vengeance, going so far as to declare the Minotaurs persona non grata within the realm of Ultramar. The fallout from this incident has served to further solidify the Minotaurs' reputation as a chapter feared not only by their enemies, but by their supposed allies within the Imperium, who recognize the Minotaurs' willingness to impose their will with ruthless efficiency, regardless of the consequences. Here are but a few of the more significant members of the Minotaurs Space Marine Chapter. Asterion Moloch, the enigmatic and brutal chapter master of the Minotaurs, stands as a figure of death and destruction in the name of the Emperor. Known for his paranoia and merciless nature, Moloch relishes his dark reputation, with his name becoming synonymous with devastation. Despite his strategic brilliance and skill in logistics and siegecraft, he avoids cooperation with other Imperial forces, preferring to remain distant and elusive. Instead, Moloch often sends his High Chaplain, Avanus Incomi, as his representative in councils and negotiations. His presence in the Badab War was not marked by participation in war councils, but rather by terrifying picked footage and horror stories spread by survivors of his ruthless attacks. Throughout his long service, Asterian Moloch has earned a fearsome reputation across numerous war zones, defeating renegade Space Marine chapter masters, orc war bosses, and chaos champions. His role in the Orphean War against the Necrons, where he personally confronted and severely wounded the Necron overlord Kutlak, added further to his legend. However, Moloch's fate has often been shrouded in mystery. In multiple battles over the centuries, he was presumed dead, only to re-emerge unscathed, leading to persistent rumors that Moloch is not a single warrior but many, inheriting both his name and persona through some forbidden process involving cybernetic reconstruction and enigmatic memory transference. These speculations are fueled by the insular nature of the Minotaurs Chapter and the extensive cybernetic augmentation Moloch has undergone, making him almost inhuman in his resilience. Despite the secrecy surrounding his true identity, one thing is certain: Asterian Moloch is a relentless force of destruction, embodying the brutal and uncompromising nature of the Minotaurs Chapter as they carry out the Emperor's will, whether against Xeno's threats or internal dissent within the Imperium. Captain Thule, having earned distinction during the Badab War as a Stern Guard veteran sergeant, made a name for himself with an impressive tally of 67 confirmed kills at the pivotal judgment on Bayanaya. By the time of the Orphean War, Thule had ascended to the rank of Vanguard veteran sergeant and was entrusted with leading a detachment of Minotaurs, comprising 5 squads, along with Storm Eagle gunships and Techmarine support. His contingent was assigned to the Ordo Xenos Interdiction Force Kappa for a critical operation on the tomb world of Themiris, where they sought to disrupt the awakening Necron tombs of the Maynarch dynasty. Commanding with fierce independence, Thule demonstrated a savage and aggressive leadership style, unleashing relentless assaults upon the Necron complexes. Though the Inquisition's interdiction force ultimately had to withdraw from the doomed planet, Thule's raids, supported by Deathwatch kill teams and Death Corps of Krieg combat engineers, inflicted significant damage on the Necron structures, crippling several tomb complexes and thus denying key assets to the enemy. Following this campaign, Thule rose to the esteemed rank of captain within the Minotaurs Chapter and was entrusted with co-command of Battle Group Thule Rex, alongside Inquisitor Caspiel Rex during a desperate defense of the hive world Crixos. In response to a full-scale invasion by the Black Legion, the battle group was swiftly dispatched to the war-torn planet. Despite the hastiness of their deployment, Thule's strategic prowess and ferocity in battle played a crucial role in the defense of Crixos' final hive city. Under his and Rex's joint leadership, the Black Legion's forces were decisively repelled, and the last bastion of Crixos was saved from certain annihilation, marking yet another chapter in Thule's legacy of brutal efficiency and unwavering resolve in the service of the Imperium. Hamath Kratos, a non-commissioned officer of the Minotaur's 9th Devastator Reserve Company, holds the position of second-in-command within the ranks of the chapter. His meteoric rise through the Minotaur's hierarchy has been viewed by many within the wider Astartes community as uncharacteristically rapid. However, this ascent has been earned through a blend of exceptional martial prowess and an unparalleled proficiency with ballistic weaponry. As a leader, Kratos exhibits a ruthless, calculating nature, coupled with a volatile temperament that manifests in an edge of murderous intent. His battlefield acumen and unflinching combat record have not only afforded him an early command position, but have also granted him access to the advanced armory of the chapter, a testament to the Minotaur's recognition of his abilities. Kratos further distinguished himself during the Orphean War, not against the Necron forces of the Maynarch dynasty, but in combat against Xeno's corsairs displaced by the relentless march of the Necron machine horde. Entrusted with command of a demi-company, Kratos orchestrated the defense of the Attendum fueling station. Employing a cunning and cold-blooded strategy, he utilized the station's human workers and servitors as bait, concentrating them within the central refinery. The Drukhari corsairs, driven by their insatiable hunger for souls, were lured into the apparent safety of the refinery, mistaking it for an ill-defended refuge ripe for plunder. As the Xenos succumbed to their overconfidence, Kratos and his forces, concealed in prearranged firing positions, unleashed a devastating crossfire, annihilating the lightly armored transports of the Drukhari and trapping them within the refinery. In the ensuing 3-hour engagement, Kratos demonstrated his exceptional skill, as over 200 Drukhari Kabalites were methodically eliminated. Remarkably, civilian casualties, though severe, were notably lower than anticipated, with only 6 in 10 workers perishing in the operation. This outcome serves as a testament to Kratos' ruthless efficiency and the precision with which he and his Minotaurs executed their ambush, turning the Drukhari's predatory instincts against them in a calculated and brutal victory. Terminator veteran Sergeant Extalion held command over the elite squad Extalion, a tactical assault force equipped with Tartaro's patterned tactical dreadnought armor, operating under the designation Dead Hand. During the climactic void battle of Amara Prime, Extalion and his squad embarked on a perilous assault against the Necron tomb ship, also ominously named Dead Hand. Their mission was to secure the ship's main control vault amidst the overwhelming threat posed by the Necron forces. Though Squad Extalion ultimately perished in the course of the assault, their sacrifice proved instrumental. Their valiant efforts allowed the Minotaurs Chapter Master, Asterion Moloch, and his honor guard to execute a precision teleport strike directly into the heart of the control vault, a pivotal move that greatly contributed to the assault's strategic success. Ivanus Encomi serves as the current Reclusiarch, or High Chaplain, of the formidable Minotaur Space Marine Chapter, a role in which he combines spiritual leadership with exceptional martial prowess. A master tactician, Encomi is renowned for leading his warriors from the vanguard, inspiring them through fervent exhortations to unleash unparalleled fury and destruction upon the enemies of the Emperor of Mankind. His presence was pivotal during the Badab War, a notorious conflict of internal strife, where he stood at the forefront of many of the Minotaur's most decisive offensives. Acting as the chapter's principal representative, Encomi played a critical role in the Loyalist War Council that directed the strategic operations of the conflict, further solidifying his position as both a spiritual guide and a military commander of unparalleled distinction. Hecaton Iacos, widely known as the Guardian of the Daedalus Crata and the Terror of Bifrost, is a Contemptor pattern dreadnought of the Minotaurs Chapter, embodying the chapter's enigmatic and brutal nature. As with much of the lore surrounding the Minotaurs, the true identity and history of the individual entombed within this ancient war machine remains obscured in layers of secrecy, with even the dreadnought's original name lost to time. Iacos has been identified through his distinctive heraldry, marking his participation in key engagements such as the boarding assault on the Lamentor's strike cruiser Mater Suspiria during the Badab War. He defense of the Black Gates of High Vitria against the Gene-Stealer cult of the Dreaming Deeps, and most notoriously, his role in the merciless slaughter of the traitors during the Bifrost Uprising. It was during the latter conflict that Iacos gained infamy beyond his chapter, after being mistakenly fired upon by the Bifrost Huskarl infantry. Under the command of Brother Sergeant Augustine of the Viper Legion, Iacos, battle-damaged and drenched in gore, flew into a killing rage. In his fury, he obliterated 37 Huskarls and tore apart Augustine himself, before eviscerating a Lehman Russ tank that attempted to intervene. His rampage was only halted when a Vox command from Chapter Master Asterion Moloch was issued from orbit, ordering him to stand down. Despite Iacos' fearsome power and extensive battlefield achievements, there is a noted peculiarity regarding his treatment within the Minotaurs Chapter. Unlike the veneration dreadnoughts typically receive in other Space Marine chapters, Iacos is met with cold indifference from his fellow battle brothers. This lack of reverence, both unsettling and mysterious, has been observed by outsiders who remain baffled by the Minotaur's apparent disregard for a warrior of Iacos' stature and history. This detachment from tradition only deepens the enigma surrounding Iacos, casting a shadow over both the dreadnought and the chapter he serves, a reflection of the Minotaur's unsettling divergence from Astartes' norms. Ancient Gerion, once known as Veteran Sergeant Gerion, met his initial death during the infamous Lampeton assault of the Badab War. Suffering grievous wounds during this brutal campaign, Gerion was entombed within the towering cybernetic chassis of a Contemptor pattern dreadnought, transforming him into a revered yet fearsome instrument of war. By the time of the Orphean War, Gerion had been honored with a place within the personal bodyguard retinue of Chapter Master Asterion Moloch. This formidable group participated in the void battle phase of the Battle of Amara Prime, where they boarded the Necron tomb ship known as Dead Hand. In the course of this climactic engagement, ancient Gerion found himself locked in single combat with the ship's Necron overlord. Overwhelmed by the alien warlord's power, Gerion was driven to his knees, seemingly on the verge of destruction. However, before the final blow could be struck, Asterion Moloch intervened, saving his ancient comrade from certain death. Gerion's fate, following the subsequent retreat of the tomb ship into the void, remains shrouded in mystery. It is unclear whether Gerion was swept into the abyss alongside Moloch, or if both were recovered after their perilous ordeal. The Minotaur Space Marine Chapter stands as a singular force within the Imperium, renowned for their ruthless efficiency, unyielding loyalty, and willingness to carry out the most brutal of orders. Their relentless nature and disregard for the conventions of honor that govern other Astartes chapters have earned them both fear and infamy. among their peers. Known for their willingness to strike down both internal dissent and external threats with equal fervor, the Minotaurs often operate on the fringes of Imperial society, feared even by those they fight to protect. Yet, it is this very cold-blooded resolve that makes them indispensable in the darkest hours of the Imperium, where victory must be won at any cost. Shrouded in mystery and often isolated from other Space Marine chapters, the Minotaurs have cemented their place as the Emperor's executioners, a force whose brutal methods ensure that the Imperium's enemies, both within and without, are dealt with swiftly and decisively. Thank you, and may the Emperor's light guide our every step, ensuring victory against the darkness that threatens humanity's future.